from the Bible in this series that I've been doing called Lost in Translation. What I'm doing is taking certain verses or texts of the Bible generally, that could be the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, or the New Testament, verses that have been misunderstood, often mistranslated, misapplied, misinterpreted. And these are verses that have been taken out of context or even translated incorrectly and simply misunderstood. So the phrase today I want to pick up on is the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. It's from Daniel 7, verses 13 and 14, and it's a vision of the book of Daniel. And what I want to point out is it's not about Jesus. The Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven has nothing to do with Jesus. And in the original context, it's actually interpreted differently as something else. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll take a look at this text in its context. We're looking at Daniel chapter 7. The Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven is not Jesus. When Christians have read this, and often even when Jews have read it, Christians have said, well, that's Jesus. And some Jewish interpreters over the ages have said, well, that's the Davidic Messiah. That's the Messiah coming in the clouds of heaven. However, within the chapter itself, it is interpreted. So here's the context. Daniel has a dream. It's also called a vision, the prophet Daniel. And in that dream, he sees four great beasts arise out of the great sea. The great sea is the Mediterranean. The first looks like a lion with eagle's wings. The second looks like a bear. The third like a leopard, but it has four heads, so it flies very fast. And the fourth is not even characterized because it's terrible, dreadful, exceedingly strong, and it tramples down everything. You get the idea that it might even conquer these other beasts or at least take them over. A little horn among the 10. And the little horn comes up and begins to speak words like a person, blaspheming God and persecuting the people of God. So this is the great persecutor. Historically, this is understood by most interpreters as the Greek ruler Antiochus Epiphanes, the Syrian Greek ruler of the 2nd century BC. You remember the Maccabean period, the little horn that speaks against the people of God. But because the end did not come, you can see how these beasts are going to get extended. In the time of Jesus, this was usually seen as Babylon the lion, Persia the bear, the leopard as Greece or Alexander the Great and his empire and his successors. And the fourth beast was seen as Rome. And then it was interpreted as having 10 horns and a little horn. And that little horn was variously seen as something to come in the future. So at various points in time, people have reinterpreted these beasts all the way down to our own time. I have a YouTube series that goes through all of this in great detail, talking about interpretations of Bible prophecy through the ages. I'll put the link in. The hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire. So it's kind of a chariot throne that we know from various kinds of Jewish literature called Merkabah literature. A stream of fire issued and came forth from before him, and thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. So you do the math on that, it's in the millions. And the court sat in judgment, and the books were open. So here Daniel looks up and he sees the heavenly throne of God. God is referred to as the Ancient of Days and described in this glorious fashion with this fiery display surrounding him and thousands upon thousands of angelic attendants and so forth. In the different depictions of the throne of God throughout the Hebrew Bible, God has a court of Elohim, or powers, gods that sit with him in rulership over the world. And here the court is sitting in judgment, And the books are open. The books have to do with judgment, recording the behavior of human beings and pronouncing judgment. And I look then because of the sound of the great words which the horn was speaking. So he's kind of astounded that this little horn has the audacity to kind of raise its little head up to the heavens and speak blasphemous words and persecute the people of God. And so this manifestation of the judgment is in order to vindicate the persecuted people of God, probably referring historically, we think, to the Maccabean period. And as I look, the beast was slain and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. And so this beast, with all of its terrible power and display, is utterly crushed and defeated. And the rest of the beasts have their dominion taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. So these different empires around the Mediterranean world and the ancient Near East, they continue, Babylon, Persia, Greece. But in this case, the fourth beast is completely destroyed and burned with fire. Then the next verse, and here's where we get the Son of Man idea. And I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. Now notice, it's like a son of man. It simply means in Hebrew or Aramaic, like a human being. Now, human beings don't belong in heaven. And the idea that a human being would be in the heavenly world draws Daniel's attention because he sees someone like a human being in heaven. This is actually in Aramaic, not Hebrew, and it's Bar Enosh. I wrote the block Hebrew Aramaic script for you, but here's the English transliteration, Bar Enosh. And this Son of Man comes to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. So he has an audience before the very throne of God. And notice, and to him was given dominion and glory and kingdom, and all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. So this idea of a kingdom that will never be destroyed correlates with Daniel 2, a previous dream of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, that Daniel had interpreted, where this image of the world kingdoms is brought down by a stone that strikes it. And Daniel 2:44 puts it very succinctly. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, and it will break in pieces all the other kingdoms and stand forever. And so the visions are very similar. They both predict a time when the kingdom of God would be set up over the entire world. Now, here's what many have overlooked. If you keep reading in the book of Daniel, this is the vision, and then Daniel's given the interpretation. He doesn't know what to think about these four beasts and the little horn and the blasphemy and the persecution of the saints. This is all future to him according to the text. And he's puzzled by it. And he asks for the interpretation. And then he's given the interpretation. Basically, these are four kingdoms that are going to arise. And there's going to be a little horn, a ruler that destroys the saints of God, the people of God. Saints in this case means the people of God, the faithful people of God. He makes war with them and wears them out, literally, as the text says. That's the interpretation. Until the Ancient of Days came, that would be the judgment. And judgment was given for the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints received the kingdom. So the hymn here refers to the collective people of God receiving the kingdom, and all peoples, nations, and languages are then serving them. They collectively are the Son of Man. That's how it's interpreted in the book of Daniel. So later, when Christians read this and they thought of the second coming of Jesus in the clouds of heaven, they found it very easy to say, well, this is a prophecy of Jesus returning in a second coming, bringing judgment to the world, when actually, in context, it's interpreted as a time when judgment is given for the saints of the Most High. In other words, in their behalf, and a time when they are given the kingdom collectively. Now, I know someone might say, well, the collective group of the saints might have a head or a ruler like a Messiah, but the point is, this text is not about a Davidic figure. It's not about a Messiah. It's nothing to do with Jesus per se as the figure of the Son of Man. Now, when you go to the Gospels, you find that Son of Man is used, particularly in the Gospel of Mark and the Synoptic Gospels, to refer to Jesus as a human being. Now, in the rest of the Hebrew Bible, this is very consistent. Son of Man, whether it's Hebrew or Aramaic, just means a human being. Here's a psalm that makes it clear. Psalm 146, verse 3. Put not your trust in princes, in a son of man in whom there's no help. In other words, in a human being. This is Hebrew parallelism. In other words, don't trust in human rulers or any human being, because humans are like the grass of the field and so forth. They fade away. You find this in the book of Ezekiel, when Ezekiel, the prophet, has his visions and he's taken up to heaven and sees all these things. He's addressed as, you son of man, you earthling, in other words, you human being. The whole point of Daniel 7 is that all the power of the world is put into the hands of God's people, and they're being glorified in giving this everlasting kingdom, this everlasting dominion. And that is the interpretation of Daniel 7. Now, when you go to the gospel,
Si Yahweh ang aking pastor, di ako makukulang. Pinahihimlay niya ako sa ang pastulan. Inakay niya sa tahimik na batisan. Pinanunumbalik niya aking kalakasan. Pinapatnubayan ng bawat hakbang, di ako nag-iisa. Pag-ibig mo'y walang hanggan, Yahweh, Yahweh, sa'yo ako'y mananahan. Si Yahweh ang aking pastor, siya aking kalakasan.
standing in front of you was a huge and terrifying statue. This image, huge and dazzling, towered before you, fearful to behold. Its head was made of gold. Its chest and arms were silver, and from its waist down to its knees, it was bronze. From there to its ankles, it was iron, and its feet were a mixture of iron and clay. As you watched, a stone was cut from a mountain, but not by human hands. The stone struck the feet, completely shattering the iron and clay, and